I'll just do then is I'll ask you the question, and then you can answer it, and,
Yeah.
and then just let me know when you.
I can't hear real good, so you got to give me a little steam when you talk.
Say your name and then spell it for me.
My name is Gary Bradley, Gary-Bradley, and I'm born February 26, 1935, so I've been here a while.
All right, so how long you been volunteering at the track?
Well, I've been volunteering at the tracks, it would be the best way to say it, since 1970, September, until right now. So that's 40, going on 43 years. I've been there from day one, and I'm going to be there until I expire.
And now you say at the track specifically, so you mean, so there's been, how many years before the actual track was there that you were racing?
Well, bear this in mind, our race began back in the boondocks, and then as pressure come from different entities, we were forced to go to a farm, which we tried that for a while, at the Pitts place, and finally we ended up owning this piece of property that we got now and closed it into a 2-mile track, you might call it. And that's where we are now. We had to do that to survive. But we were on 3 different tracks, and possibly 4, part of it, if you look at it that way. It's been a very exciting journey for sure. And I've been there from day one. So to answer that question, which I should do, I would say that I've been there 44 years.
Yeah, what's your favorite part about being a volunteer for the track?
Well, being a volunteer for anything is because you believe in it, you know. And most of us had family or friends or somebody racing out there, and it's carried us through some excitement for sure. But when you're out there hooting and hollering for a buddy, that's part of the volunteering. Our stands, a lot of our work from the volunteers is selling beer and food and all that stuff and cooking it. And that's part of it. But the race is, to me, the volunteers at the race is the big. Not to cut down the people that feed us and furnish the beer, but keeping that track clean, safe, and race ready. And we've got a crew to do it too. And our volunteers. And it's fantastic to watch them work. It's hard to come out and say they're all volunteers, because for some things we have to pay for to get gravel, we have to pay for to get clay, and then we have a skeleton crew that keeps us going. But we run about 1,000 volunteers per year, which sounds astronomical, but they're there and they do the things that it takes to make it go. And being a volunteer is vital, just to know that you're part of something that big. We're world championship, we're top notch, and we're doing it with volunteers. That's wonderful. I am not out there selling anything except who we are and our people. I'm a great believer in supporting the brush run, who they are, what they're doing, how they're doing it, and I'm part of that, and I like that, and it's vital. But we're #1 in the world right now and there's a reason for that. It's our volunteers. They plug in, they make it work. It's amazing to watch it come together, but it's beautiful. And our chief honcho, Clifford Flandry, he's got it, working it that way, and we all work together with him. Not always agreeing, but that's another part of a setup like this. As a volunteer, you can do your belly aching and you can be heard, and generally, if they get the word, it'll get straightened out and it'll work. Volunteers are fantastic.
I guess since you've been doing it since day one, what have you done at the track as far as volunteering, and what do you do now?
Well, I volunteering at the track, either as I was a flagman for several years, I was announcer for several years, and I raced for 25 years consecutive. I was the last of the first. I raced 25 years, and then it was time to get out of there. I had a bad woods accident and unfortunately got all busted up. But it was time probably for me to leave anyway, because it was, like I said, 25 years, and watching my grandsons and my sons and grandsons coming up, it took a lot of interest in that. That's on the private side of that, but my whole family was volunteers. They volunteers the timing. I was announcer for many years, and it's just something that you got to do as a community venture and adventure to make it work, and it works. And if everybody pulls together, it will work. And we've run into a few problems, and not everybody agrees with our way of doing things. But honesty does prevail, and eventually we ended up winning. And some of our local guys were fantastic. Jack Flandry, for instance, Bobby Carter, Faye Stetsney, and including myself. I had some hero stuff in there. And it's just beautiful to see that this is an ongoing thing. Our entire community is out there, and they're doing it on an attitude of let's get it done, let's help us out, and being a volunteer is how they do it. And it's absolutely phenomenal for a little community of less than 2,000 people to entertain multi-thousands. And now we've a couple times 40,000 people at a race. And when you think that's all done voluntarily, you really got to pay attention to what's going on, because it's unbelievable. And everybody helps everybody. They don't always agree, but in the end it comes out, and it's beautiful.
So then what's your favorite thing about off-road racing?
What's my favorite thing about off-road racing?
Yep, I guess, and with you, since you've been doing it and now you've been watching it for so long, what's your favorite thing about it since, I guess, through the process of off-road racing, like since it began and how it is now? What's your favorite thing about how it's changed?
Well,
or, all that.
Looking at it from that, Derek, I go to day one, 1970, and I won the first world championship in 1973 in a Ford Mustang, which is now being rebuilt, and that's another volunteer operation. It's hard for me to pick out anything. I think I've got 14 separate vehicles that I've raced in my 26 years. I quit, and I had, like I said, I had an unfortunate woods accident. Some of us volunteers have to work too on the side, and I happened to be a lumberjack, and me and that tree didn't get along, and the tree won. But all my lumberjack friends, Lynn McGee, Paul Ripensky, They all done the timing, or not the timing, but over at the shack where they all volunteer. What is that you call that when they all get together? They started off. But anyway, all of them took their time off from their logging jobs and everything else and whatever they did to make this go. There was no money involved other than getting it from the spectators and stuff like that. Then we come out. And we always kept enough money to have a race the next year. So now we're into our 43rd year, and we're still running with volunteers. It's amazing. Clifford Flannery, in my opinion, is a visionary. I've said this to several people. And he can see that, and people are willing to work with him and for him to keep it going, keeping a level track. It's amazing. And I'm just very glad to be a part of it. We've had different people at the helm, some hired and some fired, but generally it works best just when we operate on our own. And out in this world right now, that's a kind of a hard thing to do, but they're making it pay. And I'm very proud to be part of that. We got to mention one now, we got a sponsor and a worker, Javier Sanchez, who knows probably more about putting things together and making them work than anybody I ever knew. And it's coming out again. It's taking the volunteers, but here they come. And it's working. The gates are well tended, the track is well graded, and it's all, not all of it, but 90% is volunteer. And that includes the guys selling beer and food and all that good stuff too. At one time last year, I think we had the biggest year was close to 40,000 people. And that's hard to believe when you can't get that many at a Milwaukee Brewers game, you know. In this little town of ours, we are pretty proud of that.
Well, I mean, a lot of these questions you've maybe answered already, but
Well, it is inevitable that whenever you're dealing with volunteers, you're going to run into problems and disagreements, and there's no recourse from it. You can't demand more pay when you're not getting any, but by not agreeing, sometimes it brings out a situation that you can rectify, and when you do, there's an improvement in the track, in the race, and in the system because of 2 or 3 people belly aching. So that works. And belly aching to me is the same word as bitching, but that's what it amounts to. And if you don't, you're going to lose. I was an announcer out there for 10 years. And finally, I just outlived my time because apparently my language was a little rough, and I can live with that too. But I'm a part of a sport. In my opinion, I've raced a lot of different deals. I was world champion, lumberjack, chainsawyer, and I've been involved in pretty near every type of racing there is, jalopy racing and NASCAR and the whole works. And there is one star that shines above all of them, and it's off-road racing. It's until you've been in it to it. And lining up 25 engines, 25 vehicles, and the word go goes with a boom, and you go into that first corner there at Brush Run 101. It's hard to believe, but it's the most fantastic racing you'll ever see in your life. And we're proud of it. And we got multi-winners, and every now and then you can find some of our greatest drivers like Faye Stetson or Bobby Carter will be in tending bar. This is part of it. This is what it's all about. We're volunteers. Come to think of it, that's why America is a free enterprise. It's because of volunteers. And we are all descendants of them. And we're volunteers. And that's going to make us go forever. My children are there volunteering, my grandchildren are volunteering and racing, and my great-grandchildren will be there. So in your life, you're very fortunate to find a little bungalow like Forest County with only 20 people per square mile. But that's our volunteering. We know what we got. And if some of the people that are seeking to upset us and buy us out or squeal us out would put their time involving in it to make it succeed, they would succeed. And that's what's got to happen. So we'll check it out. The future it looks very bright, very bright. And then again, the reason for that is what this whole interview is all about, is volunteers. And the volunteer in Brush Run 101 is a very strong human being, and he believes in what he or she is doing. And I'm proud of him. And so is our city proud of him, and so is our county, and so is Northeast Wisconsin proud of him. Just for the record, check with our local bank, and if you had a minute or two to ask how much money is transcribed through here for Labor Day weekend, you'll never believe it. It's not 100, it ain't 1,000, it's 1,000,000 or more. And for a little dog town like this, I'm right proud to be part of it. And I guess I can't say it no cleaner than that. I tell you what happened. Here's my wife. I come home with tears in my eyes. 2 days. This is about 1980. 2 days before the race, Bobby Carter was out trying out my mechanic, and he builds our cars at this time of life. And they got screwed up and missed a corner and rolled this beautiful little El Camino over. Here comes Bob in the yard. He said, "I wrecked your truck. We got to do something. Tomorrow's the race." And I had just bought a brand new 1979 or 80 Chevrolet pickup short box. I think it had 6 miles on it. And I said, "Boys, we got to do something. We'll race that." So I did. My wife said, "You can't do that. We'll go broke." I said, "Whatever I win, you can have." And fortunately, I did get a second, and I won about $1,000, so we bought her a car too. And that's one of them happy ever after deals. But that was spooky. But here we were at 4 o'clock in the morning. She finally said, "Okay, you buy me a car." She needed one. She was teaching up there to school. And 4 o'clock in the morning, she's out there with me in a nightgown putting roll bars in that, sissy bars in that Chevrolet. And at 9 o'clock that morning, we was at the starting line, and I got one. Jack Flannery beat me. And there's another fantastic part of this whole country. Them's local people. They're in the Hall of Fame for racing. They're local, but they're in the Hall of Fame from off-road racing. And I happen to be one of them. I raced 25 years consecutively. A couple wins, but I was very proud to be asked to be that's an emotional thing. But anyway, it's good to know that we have some heroes among us. And they're all volunteers. When I think about that, it's great. For a community this far off from the boondocks, all of a sudden, just kind of like a Hollywood deal, it just explodes into fantastic. I shake more hands, pat more backs, and tell more lies in them 2 days than you could in a lifetime. Yeah, I'm sure proud of Forest County. I'm proud of the people that's in it. And I'm proud of the people that love it, and I'm proud of the people that help it. And I ain't too happy with the ones that pick on us. But they're smart enough to keep their mouth shut. How's that doing?
That's doing great. Let's see, what else can we ask you? I guess I'm just gonna keep going down the list and we'll see.
I kind of lap over on some of them.
Yeah, you've been going all over, but that's fine. I'll just ask you, and if you got nothing else to say.
We had my racing buddy, partner was Bobby Carter, and out of his shop, we built pretty much Chevrolets. I had a 1957 Nomad. Can you believe that? Right now it'd be worth $250,000. And put that on that racetrack. That's what I mean. You don't always make sense to a lot of people. But we raced back and forth, and then we got going so big that we spread out a little bit. And Bark River up there in Michigan, they decided to invite us guys that got this one going and give us their steer points to make that work out. Got that rolling, and that's right now a nationwide racetrack. And Ray Miller and I had a 1970 Dodge pickup that was fairly new with 318 in it. And now the classes had been changed around, so we pickups had to race against pickups, and except in American stock. They could still run a pickup and an American stock in the same class, only they would get, after the race was over, they'd get classed with whatever class they were in. Ray and I took that old Dodge, and it rusted out, and we built it up with 2x8s and got it to fit, brought it back up, got it running good, and went up Bark River and won first place. Well, then that fall, that was Labor Day, we got in the brush run and we won that baby. And it was illegal technically because you don't race wood in the modern day, you know. But that little guy, that buddy of mine, that Ray Miller, he was fantastic. That was one of the greatest races I ever remember. We beat Bob, or always go back to Jack Flannery, we beat him up to Bark River, and we beat him at Crandon. But that was about the end of our beating them, because Ford Motor Company took a notion that Jack Flannery was the best driver in the world, and I'm glad they did, because he showed them that he was. And that was a volunteer from Crandon, Wisconsin, Jack Flannery. And I dearly love him. He just done wonders. A lot of our things happened with Jack and that great big old roaring truck of his. He let people know that, and all of us had that part of it making it expand, but he spearheaded it. And it was fantastic. And we got drivers now, young Kincaid, that Jeff, he's fantastic. He'll race anywhere in the world. He's that good. And he's coming out of this bunch of volunteers. That's the top dog. That's hard to believe. Here I'm sitting back there laughing, telling what an old race driver I was, and they got riding lawnmowers without running mine. But I go get to talk to Jeff every now and then. My son and him, worked on and off together and mad at each other half the time. Then my son won a couple of championships, and he's a school mom, so he had to spend too much time at his job. But come to think of it, Crandon thinks about racing. A lot of them guys that was out partridge hunting this week, they're home building motors. That's beautiful. I like that too. When somebody said that old man going right there, that's Gary Bradley. Don't you know he was the greatest driver in the world? Usually that's one of my grandkids, and I give them $5 to go say that. But no, I was the greatest driver. And right now I started racing in 1952. I don't know, I ain't much for figures, but that's 50 years ago or 60 years ago, 50 for sure. Because I'm 74. I started racing when I was 18. You had to be 21. They'd let us chew snooze and swear and smoke cigarettes, and they'd let us out there. But now you can race if you're 16. Then you had to be 21. I won quite a few of them too. And you start a Chevrolet 350 around me with a straight pipe behind it, and I'll start crying. It's because it's a beautiful sound. It's like angels. And ain't nothing will outrun them. I mean, pound for pound, we all know that. Jimmy Johnson, who happens to be one of our colleagues now, he's raced 3 years in Crandon. And he is the world's greatest race driver. And he calls me Egghead by my nickname. And he and my son are friends. Jamie Flandry would have been right up there with him. I don't know Jeff Gordon personally, and I ain't going to say nothing against him, but that Jimmy Johnson's like us. He's a human being. And I got a son, Jimmy, too, and we're all good buddies. We're on a first name basis, and that's the way it should be. And he's a volunteer, too. Ask Jimmy, if you get a chance to interview Jimmy Johnson, ask him what he thinks of Crandon, Wisconsin Brush Run 101 off-road race. He'll volunteer. He'll tell you that's about the greatest place I've ever been. And it is, too. It's an emotional situation, that volunteering. And then the day after the race, here's 35 little Cub Scouts picking beer cans, throwing them in barrels. Now this is volunteering. And you wonder why a community, we have to flourish because we believe in each other. And them little kids will see who can throw the beer can the farthest and get them in there, but to get them all in there. And along comes Gopher with that big old Ford double tractor, all them beer cans going there. And then us guys get the 17 cents a pound. We don't we don't donate that. We buy beer with that. Yeah. Doug Davis, we had him for a while. He done a lot for us. But people reach a position where they ain't doing any good anymore and they still think they're doing good. It's time to step aside and let somebody take the reins ahead of you to make certain that the response is proper. That's what's going, that's what's working for us. I shake more hands than any man in that entire place, and I let them be known that I'm the last of the first. I raced the first race, the Brush Run, up until 1970, and I broke my neck. 1994, I broke my neck. And I raced every race until then. That was 25 years. And I got my trip to the Hall of Fame in my backpack, and a wife that loves me, grandchildren that adore me, children that brag on me, and every now and then bring me a 12-pack. How's that for one?
That's good.
You got any questions you want to ask me?
We'll see if I do. You've been telling me stories. How about?
You want to see that plaque about that first World Championship?
Yeah, we'll take a look at that.
Where is that? Right here, ain't it?
Yeah, it's sitting right there.
Right here, Derek. It's living proof. The first World Championship Brush Run 101, Crandon, Wisconsin, 1973. Eddie, let's see now, who in the hell was it? Oh, he owned the car, Eddie, right up by your dad. That farm, that great big farm right before you get to your dad's, or after you get past your dad. McKeag. Eddie McKeag owned that car. I owned the tavern. And that was Muscles Bar. Later I sold it to Muscles. Rita and I did. And he got creamed when he was going to college in this beautiful little Mustang. So he said, we'll make a race car out of it. So we did. And we won first place with that baby. Now that was an experience that I'll never, ever forget. You think there's goods and bads. I've won a lot of first place. I think I hold 4 world titles right now. And winning that brush run was greater than being the world champion logger, to me. Nah, I think they're both about the same. I never was very humble, and I ain't never going to be. I say things just exactly the way they are, and try to make them improve if they're lousy. But I'm right proud of the fact that I am part of that Brush Run 101, that World Championship off-road racing, Crandon, Wisconsin. Just being part of that is beautiful. And it's almost become a place for people to have their family reunions and things like that. It's coming to that point. We'll see you at the Brush Run. And there they are. Blankets and seats, aluminum chairs, sitting on the ground, getting drunk, having fun like normal spectators ought to do, and letting the world go by and watching the most fantastic racing on this planet Earth. And until you have seen or been a spectator of that off-road racing, especially in Crandon, Wisconsin, until you have seen a race there, you ain't seen a race. That is the most spectacular, fantastic, and exciting racing on earth. When they come out of that first corner, sometimes 35 of them at once, it's unbelievable. It's like a herd of buffalo, and all of them with 350s in them. Yeah, I'm very pleased with the way we've all worked together. I think about stuff like that and the people. Ted Brownell was one of our presidents. I was president for several years. All of us, regardless of what office you held, it was the determination that you done. Now, Ted's wife, Virginia, was our secretary, and she kept very, very close bonds and money. And Gary Cyrus was our treasurer, and between them, our books, who would ever know it, but they matched, they come out. that's another thing about volunteers. Generally, they're all very honest. And that's another reason the Brush Run has survived to this, I believe will be our 43rd or 44th coming up. And I'll be there. I'll be there if I'm alive. And I'm quite sure I will be, because I'm a tough son of a bitch, and I think I can handle that. Every time I see somebody getting older, I think I got all my friends like Clyde Gilbert and Dave Spencer, a lot of them guys, race drivers, were in our late 70s. So, you know, volunteers. It was 70 years ago, this December 7th, that the raid on Pearl Harbor took place. I was 6 years old when it happened. I can remember it like it was yesterday. And you know what won that war for us? Volunteers. They come back the next day and everybody volunteered. They got into the Second World War and tore them Krauts and them Nips a brand new ass, and that was the way I like to see it done. I watched my community of 2,000 diminish with an ever able-bodied son from 17 to 30 gone, drafted or enlisted, and it was a frightening thing. Until 1946, a lot of them come back. Some of them never did. Some were never found out where they went. But we won the war, and we won the war for one reason. Volunteers. The same thing that keeps the track going. Volunteers. I'm a great believer in that. And I love this North Country. We got it made, and the whole rest of the world was trying to find peace and tranquility and quiet and honesty. And we're a bunch of crooks, and we're living like a bunch of queens. It cracks me up. This has got to be the Garden of Eden.
What do you think the future holds for off-road racing?
Well, that's kind of what I tried to hit on. It'll be prosperous if everybody pulls together, but we got a couple of those big companies that are trying to steal the Brush Run, and it ain't going to work. If you recorded some of that stuff, well, then you'll find in there, I mentioned the fact that there are some of these oil companies and stuff would like to steal the Brush Run, but they can't, because one thing, one of our volunteers went to Washington and got our status as World Championship off-road race, and we are that. So I would say the future, as bleak as it sometimes seemed like it was, always came out brighter after the race is going. These race drivers are a phenomenal group of people, strong-hearted, very talented. The difference between off-road and an oval track or whatever other type of racing, they're all good drivers. But for a driver that's got to switch 90 degrees in the first two corners, it's a whole different ball game. And they are some fantastic people. They're just fantastic. That Face Destiny, a local kid of ours, he's got physical problems. Nobody could beat him. I mean, that's simple. Rarely did somebody, and if it did, it was one of us guys that close, like Al Fannin. I got second so much behind face that thing, I thought that I was in second grade. But that Pollock can drive. Yeah, he can drive. And then he got hurt in the woods, and that was a kind of a score for all of us. You get me started on something like this, and it's I think of all the beautiful stuff that's happened. We had a son racing in the motorcycles. We used to be motorcycles in that off-road race too, and that was at Pitts's. And my daughter, Pam, I was announcing, and there was a wreck on turn 2. And my daughter come down there, and the nurse was, the hospital outfit and the ambulance were all there, and that's when my son Scott broke his leg. And when Pam got there, they pulled the blanket over him. She thought that he'd got zapped. Well, all this is happiness and sadness and happiness all mixed up and come out. Nobody likes a broken leg, but they like that better than being dead. Well, it went on. He went to the hospital, and they did put him in slings and all that. Wasn't getting the proper treatment. Well, then they found another volunteer, his mother. She got in that hospital and started kicking asses and taking names and telling them nuns that get the hell out of the room, you ain't no goddamn doctor. And she straightened the hospital out. Now that's another example. That was people. Now that's the stuff I went through in my life.
You know, they put his leg up in the traction.
You listening to that?
I heard what you said. They put his leg up in the traction on the wrong side, on the rough side, and it dug a hole under his leg.
Yeah.
What he was getting an infection in it. And I pulled that down away from his leg, and I could see that, and I asked one of those nurses if she would cut it away from it so it could get some air. She wouldn't do it. She said, I can't do that unless the doctor says. So, anyway, that old nun, she come in and she looked at it and she said, yeah, it's got to be done. So she did. She got somebody to cut it off of his leg, but they had to reset his whole leg. It was terrible looking. Yeah, I raced a little bit, but I had to.
But that's part of life too. That's them visions.
Yeah.
And them volunteers, Mother.
Yeah.
But I'll never forget her up there, and that had her nightgown on. We put them roll bars in that new Chevrolet pickup.
Oh yeah, I didn't give me even time to get dressed. Yeah, we had a lot of things going.
But and see, when that first started, when a lot of people are lost, it's wonderful to go around that track and everybody gets to see you. But imagine yourself racing. My daughter rode shotgun with me one time, and I had that very same pickup. We're going down a Johnson fire lane, 90 miles an hour, knowing that traffic all goes the same way. And my daughter said, Dad, somebody's trying to pass, and I'm going 90 on a fire lane, and that goddamn Bobby Carter passed me. We ended up first and second. And I don't remember who got third, R.J. Smith, but anyway, out of like 65 vehicles. You know, this was not no little tinker toy game. And us locals were controlling it. There again is where there's different feelings about that, but the major companies started supporting. Ford come in, General Motors, Firestone tires, and all of a sudden you had to have a $20,000 vehicle to compete. The volunteers were still there with their $200 jobs, but they were coming in second in a 2-car race. And that I felt, and now this is another, on that one question, the future of brush run, they're allowing them back. They're getting them stock vehicles back. There's a place for them. And you watch, they're going to survive. Our grandson, he got a third this year, and he just, out of 35 vehicles, that's a big deal. And he's going to that Troy McGeeshik or Troy Peterson. And he's very quiet about it. He ain't a big mouth son of a bitch like his old grandpa, but boy, he can drive.
I think what they're going to have to do, though, if they continue the brush run, is get more area. It's getting too big for the space. That's what I think. It is.
Nah. You mean there ain't enough room?
Right.
Well, then we'll buy another town.
I don't know. But they do. They need more room.
Town of Crandon. No, there's plenty of room. Because look at the Indianapolis, Daytona, they're all on 60 acres. Maybe 80.
It's a little different setup, you know?
Yeah, but that's the greatest motor adventures. We can claim the greatest off-road adventures, but the greatest motor adventure is, I think, Indianapolis. And Daytona would be second. Or maybe reversed, I don't know. The last time I seen Jimmy Johnson, I was talking to my son, Jim, and Jimmy Johnson drank some of that wine, one of them 1 watts made, and he's barfing off my kid's back porch. That's where Jim lives out there now. Them guys call each other up on the phone, they talk her over. This is what kind of a world we got. Hubbing with the big wigs, you know. And it don't mean that much because they're all out of the same litter, I guess you might say.
Yeah, I think one of the best brush runs we ever had was at the Carter's Field, out to Bobby Carter's, where they all come through that mud hole. Did you tell them about that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was a good time. Yeah, it was fun. It was fun. It was more togetherness, I guess. Now it's.
Well, I mean, money does that, regardless from what direction you come in.
Stay the same, no. That's for sure. But it is a big thing, that brush run. A lot of people come. That's good. I mean, it's good for Crandon, I think.
You want another beer?
Sure, I might take one.
Hmm?
Sure, I might take another one.
Darling, would you be so kind as bringing him a beer?